We are we are live. We are recording.
Oh, we are. Okay, good. Okay. Ready?
Ready. We are on our marathon of a recording session, and now the roles have been switched. So Dominique is now going to be interviewing me, yes, on the Pitch Queen page right here, live, behind the scenes, because this interview actually only goes to a special certain group of people. So
this is our private podcast, so you're getting a little get to peek in on our worlds for a little bit.
Awesome. What world are we talking about, Dominique?
The world of tax planners. So we run a podcast a couple times a month for our certified tax planners. It's called Intaxication. And we're glad to have you joining us today, Michelle, to talk about where the sales conversation goes all wrong.
Okay. One of my favorite topics. I love talking about sales conversations because I actually just had a really funny one, Dominique, because someone asked, what is your role in the company? Is this a sales conversation? It was
nice.
Great. Yeah.
And how did you respond? I'm curious.
I actually, with this guy, it was actually really, really funny. So if you become a member one day, you're going to learn this. But I said, everything that we just discussed, I teach you with Dominique. And anytime you're collecting money, anytime that you're growing your revenue, it is a sales conversation. And in a sales conversation, I believe it goes two ways. I believe that every time you're talking to a prospect or a client, you're interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. And when people think it's always about the price, and I still do believe that, honestly, maybe 1% of the population still will only purchase something based on price, but many of them actually don't. And we won't go into the details of who those people are, but there just is a group of people that will only buy based on price. And it's not even logical from what I say, but it is. That's how I answered it. And I said, yes, we are actually having a sales conversation. So welcome to our conversation today. And that's what I told them.
Nice. Well, let's get this podcast episode started, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
All right. We're back with another episode of Intaxication, all the tax talk without the hangover. So glad you could join us today. We've got a super exciting guest joining us today, our very own Michelle Weinstein, the Pitch Queen herself. And today's topic is going to focus on where the sales conversation goes wrong. So we're so fortunate to have Michelle on our team here at the AICTP. She's a sales strategist. She's an entrepreneur. She's an innovator. Michelle has got over 20 years of sales experience, and she has sold everything from multi-million-dollar homes to paleo meatballs.
Yes.
Those are pretty good, actually. I've had those meatballs.
I miss them.
Michelle, you have so much talent, too, because you've had a lot of achievements, such as raising over $1 million for your last company. You've landed contracts with major retailers like Costco and the Vitamin Shop, and you even pitched your way onto ABC's popular show, The Shark Tank. And you've also founded the Pitch Queen, and that's where you help small business owners and entrepreneurs learn to love selling. And that way, it makes people able to make a bigger impact on the world and skyline top line revenue. So I'm so glad to have you here today to kind of walk us through what can be terrifying for a lot of our planners out there.
Yes, it is terrifying for a lot of people, but the ones that I've worked with, and some of you might actually be listening because you've worked with me, you love it. And this becomes part of the fun in your career, because what I've learned of the sales conversation, and this might be a little twist for some of you to think about, but you might actually thank me later, is that if you have really powerful sales conversations, you'll actually be able to help more people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
And I love your point of view too, is that sometimes people don't know what they don't know. And you help them in a good enrollment conversation. You help them move past their own blocks to allow them to do what's really good for them, right?
Yeah, it's crucial, and our own blocks is what stops us. One of the women, who I'm working with right now, her name's Christine, and she was a unique accountant, and I'm not sure a lot of you might be able to relate, but some of you might, where you get to this point, and I think Dominique, you might even relate, where it's like this take it or leave it mentality, right? You're so busy, you're talking to a client, and you're so detached from the outcome that you don't even care if they're going to be a client or not, and they can walk out the door, but it doesn't even faze you. And when we were talking about it, I was sharing with her that you're actually doing them a disservice by coming from that place. Because if you're the best, which she thinks she is, and you are too, and you allow a client to walk out the door because you didn't take a stand for them, because you were, busy, you have all your paperwork in front of you, you weren't thinking about them, you were actually thinking about yourself, they walk out the door, they're not serviced by you as the expert. They're going to go somewhere else and probably not get the best service possible. And then they're going to be in the same boat. And you didn't help your client. And you didn't grow your revenue. So coming from that place actually hurts you. So the sales conversation is so important. And coming from the place of, you know what, if I help and serve this client and it is a good fit, I'm going to help them, save more money, because if they don't do this right now, they're going to be SOL.
Yeah. I mean, you've touched on something that's so important, Michelle, not only with the sales conversation itself, but in the level at which you're able to service your clients. If I am burned out, maxed out, stressed out, if I'm so depleted that when somebody new comes in the door and I don't really care, I really can't be there for them. And so, yes, you're missing out on a sale, but I also want to highlight, what level of service are you offering your current clients in that state? Now,
right.
I'm not pointing the finger, because I can tell you I've been there many, many times.
Yes.
And that's on me. I can point the finger at myself and say, I didn't do what I needed to do to take care of myself in these situations to be able to bring my full self and bring the full level of service that people deserve. And so part of this model is really shedding some of the low-priced sort of pain-in-the-neck clients so that you can actually have a refreshed outlook. You can be calm. You can be hydrated. So water's a big thing. Yeah, I know it's a big thing with you too.
You know what water does from a sales perspective? It stops you from talking too much. So every accountant I've worked with, they talk too much. And part of the sales conversation that goes south, since that's what we're talking about today, is that you talk too much. So having a gallon of water in front of you, having a coffee pot in front of you, having your green juice in front of you, I don't care what it is, the more gulps you take in an hour with a client, the better. Because you got to just stop talking so much.
Yeah, the mute button comes in handy too. Haven't you used the mute button before, Michelle?
I used the mute button today. I was getting so irritated with that other guy that I was talking to. I had to put myself on mute to stop talking and interrupting. So even for the best of us, it still happens. And at times we need to use the mute button. But, people want to be heard. And with my example of Christine from Monday, she actually emailed me today. She met with a client who she had met with a month ago. They didn't take her up on whatever she was going to do with some bookkeeping stuff. And she met with him yesterday. And she wrote me back in bold letters in the email. It said, Michelle, the guy gave me $1,000 deposit, and he felt heard, and he felt that he was going to get taken care of. And this is someone who 2 weeks ago was coming from the place of, I don't care if you work with me or not. You can take a hike. there's plenty of other people. I don't need you if you're not willing to do this, pay this price, etc. And it makes a big difference. It's like night and day what happened. And not only did she get a client that she wanted, the client felt heard. The client knows he's going to get serviced, and he said, you know what, you get me, and you're going to be the best person that I need to work with me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's definitely one place where the sales conversation goes awry, right? It's not being all there and talking too much and not listening. How much should people be listening during that sales conversation, Michelle?
So I use the 80-20 rule, and there's a book that each of you should probably read. It's called the 80-20 Principle. I have no idea who wrote it, but I'm sure it has a lot to do with your client base, but it also goes with your listening base. So probably in your business, in your firm, you are generating 80% of your revenue from the top 20% of your clients. Just a guess. My guess is it's probably close. Well, the listening in your conversations with your clients, be it current clients, prospects, or whatever, also needs to be the same. You're listening 80% of the time and only talking 20% of the time.
Yeah, it's such a shock. And even if I don't think I'm saying very much, when I look back on conversations and sometimes I don't have answers to critical questions that I know I asked, typically it's because I talked way too much. It's because I inserted myself or talked over someone, and when you're talking, you're not listening.
Right. Yeah.
So that's great, listening for sure.
Is
What's
taking
that?
notes. So taking notes is crucial for the listening department of when you're in that role, right? You're not doing the technical side of the business. You're not working with the client in the nitty gritty, but you're listening to what's important to them. And you're listening from a place of how am I going to help this person and serve them? And those notes will come in handy when you actually go do the technical piece of the work. So having a notepad, having a pen, and actually really listening to the detail of the words that they say is really crucial, because then when you talk to them in a month or so, and you're sitting there, and let's just say you're like Dominique and you're doing a tax plan for them, right? And you're sitting there, you have the notes from your conversation a month ago, and it's exactly what was important to them. So maybe they came to you and they said, you know what's really important to me is that my wife can actually sell this business and make money on it and not have to pay capital gains tax. So we can go buy this house in the mountains of Colorado and go to Italy for 2 weeks. So if you actually remember the little details and wrote all that down a month from now when you present them their plan, that's what was important to them. You're going to have a very happy client and get a lot of referrals.
Yeah, and a great place to not only communicate that back to them is verbally, right? When you're trying to summarize the solution and you're speaking in a language that they can understand. So you can say, we're going to do A, B, and C so that you can go to Italy, right? But the other place to reference that information is in True Tax Planner. So in the software itself, one of the parts of the PowerPoint presentation that we use to go through the plan with the client talks about what are their goals. It also comes out in the executive summary that's printed from the software. And so having notes, you're right, we may not always remember what we talked about. Some time has passed, even a couple weeks, we can forget what they said. So I love taking notes as well. And sometimes people feel intimidated to take notes while they're sitting in front of someone. But I just let them know at the beginning, hey, I'm a note taker. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to take some notes.
Yeah, I think it's really important to let them know in advance. And when you let them know in advance about the whole sales conversation and, just how you teach everybody when to preface, in the beginning to set out the agenda. When you share an agenda with a client, then they can actually sit back and listen. Otherwise, they're waiting, well, when am I going to get pitched? When are they going to tell me the price, right? That's how usually it goes. So setting the agenda and setting the intention for the meeting is really key, and also letting them know that you're going to take notes and that you want to really capture what's important to them. And that's totally okay, letting people know that.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about agenda, because when you sit down with somebody, I agree, that is such a nerve-wracking experience, and I can just tell you, having sat through my share of timeshare presentations, this comes up, right? They're showing you beautiful pictures of beaches and all these tropical locations, and I'm on the edge of my seat the whole time wondering, okay, when am I going to get pitched? When am I going to get pitched? When am I going to get pitched? So setting that agenda at the top of the meeting to say, hey, first, I have some questions for you so that I can better understand your business and your goals. Next, we're going to go over my findings. I've taken a look at your tax returns, and here's what I found. I'm also going to allow you to ask me some questions after what I've shared with you. And then finally, I'll talk about if it's a good fit. We'll look at what it's going to look like to work together. And if it's a good fit, then I'll tell you the next steps. And so when you set that agenda out, and especially in writing, it tells people, okay, I can relax and actually hear what you have to say. I'm not on the edge of my seat. And then when the pitch does come, I'm expecting it. So I'm not blindsided. I'm not feeling sold to, because I know that's why I'm here. I'm going to hear about what it's going to be like for the two of us to work together.
Right. And I think